All right, everyone. I think we can get started here. We can get moving on our presentation today. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Today's event is a joint effort between the TAG Transportation Technology Society and the Georgia Logistics Association. The event is entitled "How Autonomous Navigation Will Impact Logistics. The Future is Here." So first of all, a little bit about your co-sponsors, TAG and the Georgia Logistics Association. TAG is one of the largest organizations, technology associations in the U.S., more than 30,000 members. It's grown incredibly since I first started with TAG, which was, 12 years ago. When they had 5,000 members. So I think that's an indication of just how far TAG has come along and how far Georgia has come along as well in terms of building a technology ecosystem. So congratulations to TAG for that effort. And I'm sure that there's more to come. And so TAG is comprised of 25 or so societies. Our society is called Transportation Technology. We're a subgroup, focus group. We focus on the technology, the transportation technology ecosystem, and how we can promote the technologies that are here today and coming tomorrow, and how they're going to impact how we transport people and products. So that's what we do within TAG. And then we also, our partners here today, the Georgia Logistics Association is a member-driven nonprofit of Georgia-based corporate entities dedicated to facilitating and cultivating supply chain and logistics innovation, along with best practices. And it is comprised of some of the brightest minds in logistics and the logistics industry here in Georgia, which is, as we I think most of us know, is one of the most important, if not the most important industry here. So it's been a pleasure to collaborate with the GLA. And my name is Dennis Bruce. I am the head of the society, the Transportation Technology Society of TAG, and helped coordinate this event together with the GLA and with the help of TAG as well. So today we have a fascinating expert panel to discuss what the impact is going to be, or what it is being actually, of the technologies that are being applied in logistics, particularly autonomous navigation. And that goes from the warehouse out through the roadways and points beyond. So I am going to turn it over right now to our moderator, Dennis Seidlich. And Dennis, I'll just ask you just to do a brief intro of the panel and just get us going.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess we can do a round of introductions, and I think Janine is going to go through a presentation first before we jump in, right?
My bad on that. Yeah. First of all, let me back up a little bit. I can see the surprise look on your face.
That was like, I'm not ready.
Yeah, you're not ready because I went out of order, okay? So first of all, we have Janine Miller, who is the Director of Planning at the Georgia Department of Transportation. And Janine is our keynote speaker today. And she also has a brief presentation that she's going to share with us. And she has a unique insight on where the regulatory, the legal, the legislative side of things, not only at the state level, but also at the federal level. So Janine, we will turn it over to you to kick us off.
Good morning, everyone, and I hope you can hear me okay. Hear me okay? Okay, great. And I will give first a warning. I do have my dog at home here with me. Hopefully he'll be quiet when the mailman shows up, but I'll hit mute as soon as I can if I need to. Big thanks to Sandy Lake. Good to see you this morning, Sandy, and Jamie Fisher for inviting me to participate today, and Dennis for organizing, and Jessica and the team there. Really appreciate the opportunity to meet with industry once again. It's one of my passions here for the work I get to do in government, is to interact as meaningfully and robustly as I can with our private sector customers. So my name is Janine Miller, Director of Planning with the Department of Transportation here at Georgia State Government. Previously have been at U.S. Department of Transportation, USDA, and at the Center of Innovation for Logistics, Home Depot, Governor's Office, you name it. But everywhere I go, the work that I do that's in infrastructure, predominantly transportation, but also in broadband, we are looking to the ways that government can help support and facilitate private sector expansion and growth on a fair playing field, of course. But our economy is driven by the logistics industry, and just so thankful for your participation here today. I'm going to work to try to make sure I can share my screen. Let's give this a shot. Okay. And we'll go into play mode. All right. Can everybody see the screen there? Okay, fantastic. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about customer demand. The sampling of what I've seen is the industry response and the government response. And this is predominantly in the e-commerce and autonomous space. And I know I'm supposed to be giving a keynote address, but for those of you who know me, I just like the visual that comes along with the PowerPoint. So pardon my putting some slides in front of you so early in the morning. From a customer demand standpoint, really what you all want is reliability for your fleets and for your cargo to arrive at its destination at a time you can predict. Well, one of the biggest problems that occurs out on the roadway on an irregular basis, as we call it, is non-recurring congestion that comes from delay. A lot of vehicles moving, and then a crash happens, and boom, we are all in a traffic jam on the interstate and spending lots and lots of time. So as we have 2,000 vehicles per hour in these 4 lanes start to back up at taking up 20 feet per vehicle at $20 to $70 an hour, we're talking about a 7.5 mile backup that ends up occurring on an hourly basis. These are our quantification of the dollars that are burned. So this is important for our traffic congestion and mitigating these types of crashes for freight movement and reliability, but also for safety of our network. So this is our #1 view at GDOT all the time, is the safety targets. From an e-commerce standpoint, though, as customers of our freight network, we are seeing this uptick in e-commerce in quantitative ways. And Sandy, thanks for this. This is from the Georgia Logistics Innovation Center's Logistics Market Snapshot. And I highly encourage you, if you are not yet subscribed to that, it's a monthly publication. That's a one-stop shop for every sort of metric and statistical publication of data that happens. It's 5 or 6 pages worth. I've grabbed the e-commerce from the latest issue. So Q2 of 2021, $225 billion of e-commerce sales. That's an increase of 3.3% from the last quarter. Yes, that is quarter over quarter growth, 3.3, and year over year, 9.1%. E-commerce sales is now more than 13% of total sales. And we're also looking at what houses that e-commerce. Is the industrial vacancy rate is at the lowest since Q4 of 2018, attributable to e-commerce acceleration. And we know that the advancing technology, and this is pulled from a National Freight Strategic Plan document, advancing technology is enabling that e-fulfillment. That is this, the schematic here is just a very simplified depiction of the complexities that are now in place versus the traditional linear, and how this, we can see, impacts transportation costs 10 to 15 times more expensive to get the box to the door in this new frame. So we in government think, what are ways that we can help bring those costs down with our network, with our transportation infrastructure and services? So the acceleration, though, of this e-commerce is something that we see as greater than the other key factors of trends and challenges. We're seeing a tremendous growth in manufacturing and agriculture over the next several decades. Supply chain diversification is something we're also keeping a close eye on in terms of how that might shift modes or demand to shift in modes. So as we're planning our infrastructure, we're looking at intermodal facilities for the transfer from truck to rail, from water to truck and the like. But e-commerce acceleration is really the thing that's going to, of course, continue to change our economy, but also the way that we respond to it with our infrastructure and services. Here's a snapshot switching now to autonomous vehicles. There's a notion, this was published back in 2017 from the University of Texas, that by 2020, we would have 5.5% of the fleet as connected potentially. And that number there on conservative estimates is 2% of the fleet. Is this number correct? Probably it's a little bit high even on the conservative end. But this trajectory, whether it's this high line or this low line, is very, very difficult to predict. But we are seeing that connected autonomous vehicles, the demand for that from our customers is going to keep happening. And at a minimum, we believe, or the NHTSA, that's the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, believes that 80% of crashes do not involve impairment and could have been averted from CV to X technology connected vehicles. So we are seeing this as the demands out there from our customers. On the freight side of things, we know IT is going to be important for truck parking, truck size and weight, continued weight to motion. Addressing freight corridor bottlenecks, platooning might be something we could potentially see occurring on our commercial vehicle lanes that are under development right now between Macon and Atlanta. The IoT availability, that need to track and trace your cargo, know its condition and estimated time of arrival, we believe is going to be best supported by a fiber broadband network throughout our entire transportation system. We are a long way from that, but we see that as needed in the future. Safety in trucking for roadside units, and we actually have some roadside safety units that we're using out there called iCone, and I'll show you some of the other technology applications that we're using to manage our roadway. The last mile, that's kind of a tricky thing to think about. What is last mile? We'll get to that later for us. And then air quality considerations and making sure we're being good environmental stewards with truck electrification. These are the things that are on our radar screen here as we're thinking about planning and operating our network. I'd like to show you what other countries are doing in that response, though. This kind of switches to what's the government response to the customer demand. Nobody's in a bigger hurry than a dead salmon, is the philosophy of this multi-country effort to get salmon from the ships in the northern part of Scandinavia down to the port where it can be transported out to its customers throughout the world. So this is a demonstration of the fact that it is feasible to have connected vehicles and traffic management systems with signal priority, in-vehicle notifications, and autonomous driving to support the reliable and quick movement of that commodity on its way to its customer. We don't have that yet here in the country, but we have this sort of applications are starting to roll out here. One of them is work that we are doing at GDOT with what's called DriveWise, creating these geofences around 10 corridors in around the state that are heavily trucked, and giving the in-cab notification on the electronic logging devices. We're not asking for anyone to pick up a cell phone while they're driving. These are in-cab notifications that let the truckers know up ahead is a dangerous curve, up ahead is traffic congestion, and slow down. So so far we've seen a 19% reduction in that hard braking just by those in-cab notifications. Very, very impactful both for the safety of those drivers, that driver in that truck and around it, but also, as I showed you earlier, for the congestion that does not ensue as a result of these more safe conditions. We're also using cameras to detect where we have slowdowns, where the traffic is not flowing like the camera usually sees it flowing. If we see a stoppage on the camera, automatically this AI tells us we've got a problem, and we send out the right response. So we've had in urban areas, we've had a 3 to 6 minute reduction in incident reporting and a 6 to 8 minute reduction in rural incident reporting. And the faster we know about the incident, the faster we can get responses out there. I know I'm kind of downloading a whole lot to you here, but it does all come together here shortly. ITS on I-95. Remember I mentioned broadband fiber everywhere? We're getting this installed on I-95. We have it throughout Metro Atlanta, but this is our first foray into the southern parts of Georgia, where we're going to have the ability to do real-time communication along this key freight corridor, especially to and from the Port of Savannah. And another application that we have is, you may have heard of, the RAY. This is a partnership. Commissioner McMurray launched this several years ago in partnership with the RAY, which is a philanthropic organization. And so we call it a P4. So it's public-private philanthropic partnership. And there's both electrification aspects to the various components of the RAY, but also autonomous type data feeds on work zone warnings, freight and signal priority, ways that we can monitor and identify road maintenance needs. This is all being pilot tested here in Georgia on I-85, down just north of the Alabama border. And then are lovingly called SIG-Ops, which is data feeds from these on roadside unit cabinets, filtering back information to automobiles who have that connected technology within the cars. Ford and Audi are two of the automakers who have reached out, and we're working with to push information out around. There's a green light about a quarter of a mile ahead, but in 30 seconds, it's going to be red. So don't speed to it. Your ideal speed to get to that traffic light on a green is 30 miles an hour and not 50 miles an hour. These are, again, more in-cab pieces of notifications that are coming to the drivers from the infrastructure. And I wanted to go back to e-commerce for just a second. And this is 7.2 miles is our last mile. So these are things government is thinking about and looking at and enacting as we're on this march to autonomous vehicles. A 7.2 mile last mile is a lot longer to have to deal with from the distribution center to the residential unit where the packages are delivered. So as we're thinking about our infrastructure planning, we're keeping that in mind. This all really comes together with a company called Neuro. And I don't know if you've heard of this yet or not. This company submitted a petition to U.S. Department of Transportation in October of 2018. And within a year and a half, I've just imagined the speed of federal government at a year and a half giving the exemption that was requested to Neuro to operate these vehicles on our roadway. No driver, but no passengers either. That was part of the compelling case that was made, is there's no need to have all of the safety benefits that are now in our modern vehicles, from seat belts to airbags to the lane warning systems that are coming into play. No need for that if there's no human in the vehicle. So they made the safety case that these can detect pedestrians and bicycles and stop when they need to while they're going about their business of exclusively carrying cargo and operating without a human driver. And to date, according to Neuro's website, they have some major customers that are looking to do this deployment of this level 4 autonomous vehicle. So the takeaway here is that it really does take both the private sector pushing the the interest and the demands that the private sector requires, and the public sector being willing and open to accept those demands through a frame that are primary for us. Remember, I started with the slide about safety. So in a year and a half, we were able to get autonomous vehicles authorized to run on the road. That's astounding because the safety case was made. So lastly, I just want to say, and there we go, there's the dog. Lastly, we're about to start our state freight plan update. It's going to be a business plan for our freight infrastructure. We're looking at foundational investments to keep running the business and meeting our customer expectations, the logistics-enabled companies who rely on our networks. We're looking at catalytic investments to grow the business and expand shippers who want to locate in Georgia. And we're going to be looking at innovative investments, our R&D, so to speak, to evaluate new options we can retain and expand our customer base here in Georgia and continue making Georgia the #1 place for business. I'm excited that we're kicking that work off here and look forward to engaging with the Logistics Association as we do that work. So that concludes my remarks, and I look forward to being part of this presentation and learning even more from you all today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Janine. And we are just going to have a brief presentation by me. If you'll just bear with me 1 second here. Today's sponsor for the event is a company that I happen to be intimately involved with on many fronts, but they're called the 3XM Group. They are a company that's based here in the U.S. as well as Argentina, where they have their development center. They are a company that's been in business for about 10 years now, 80+ people, 150+ projects delivered successfully. They are in 5 areas, principally custom software development, product development, AR, VR, MR, staff augmentation, and cloud and DevOps. And the thing about 3XM is that they've done quite a bit of work in the area of transportation and logistics. Just a few examples here with, for example, Breadbasket Infrastructure. We're a tech-driven logistics company, delivers smart, creative supply chain solutions, and they needed to get a serverless architecture running on Azure, and that was a project that the 3XM Group delivered successfully. That was one case of a logistics implementation, automating supplier selection through a Texas-based company, logistics and supply chain sector, using the big courier companies as well as others as part of its business. And they had to consult the internal system, cases already that had integrations and cases that didn't. So what the team did was to consolidate and standardize all of those inputs and means of communications with all those different systems to streamline the process of supplier selection. And another example would be Mobile Logistics, through a Texas-based company, building a tracking system, optimizing pre-existing processes to track shipments, optimize routes, assign loading and unloading tasks through a mobile application. One last example of work done in logistics would be migrating workloads to the cloud. This is something that the team has done with many different clients, both logistics and others. And that seems to be the way of the world these days, that a lot of companies are migrating to the cloud, and the 3XM Group has a tremendous amount of experience in that. And in particular focus on logistics in particular in different areas, in migration to the cloud, mobile, API builds, and custom software development. So our sponsor today at 3XM Group, if you have any needs or questions in the area of building solutions or integrating solutions in the logistics area, you can contact me. and we can discuss that further with the team and help you hopefully resolve any issues or take advantage of any opportunities in that area. So with that said, I will stop sharing. We will turn it over now to our panel. We have Mr. Dennis Seidlich, who is the CEO of Slip Robotics, excuse me. And Dennis is today's moderator. And we have also representatives from the Ascend Transport Group. Mr. Michael McClary is the CEO. On our panel, Mr. Greg Krongold, who's the engineering manager at UPS Advanced Technology Group. Mr. Andreas Bodenauer, who is the CEO of Agalux North America. And of course, Janine Miller, who is the Director of Planning, Georgia Department of Transportation, who gave our keynote in our presentation. So I'd like to thank all of the panelists for joining us today. And Dennis, you can now go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah, thanks for the introductions. So I guess kind of the plan for the panel is we'll go for 45 minutes to an hour. I think the plan is if you have questions along the way, you can put them in the chat and either kind of I'll see them as we're going or definitely get to them and can unmute people at the end. But yeah, I think that's the overall plan. So I think we'll start with just a round of introductions. I'm super excited about this panel. Like I feel like we have kind of every niche of this industry, and I think these are some of the people I'd have loved to have been able to talk to while I was at Waymo to answer some of my questions. So I think it's going to be it'll be fun. But I guess I'll get started just on our kind of background and our company or group or whatever we'd like to introduce, why we're here. So I'm Dennis Seidlich. So I have a PhD from Georgia Tech from the School of Aerospace Engineering, but I worked with Boeing on a lot of like production planning, simulation, and optimization stuff during my time there. I've since worked at the Aerospace Corporation doing like MilSatCom analysis. I then kind of more relevantly went to a Silicon Valley robotics startup doing robotic parking garages, which unfortunately wasn't the best idea in the world, but great experience. And then I was at Waymo as a systems engineer, defining really like the behavior of the car. So that was a very interesting challenge, putting numbers and algorithms to how you drive a vehicle. And then kind of from there, I'm now the CTO and co-founder of Slip Robotics, which is a Atlanta-based venture backed company. So we're backed by Tech Square Ventures and Overline Ventures here in Atlanta. And we're really focused on solving kind of like short haul cyclical trailer and unloading challenges. So we're taking the forklift load and being able to do that in 5 minutes or less, and really helping that warehouse to production facility or distribution center to sort center type of routes. And yeah, as I mentioned in the initial part, we're starting a pilot with like a tier 1 auto supplier in the next couple of weeks. So we're super exciting time for us. But yeah, I guess from there, we'll start with Michael, maybe give your background and introduction.
Yeah, sure. So I spent most of my career at UPS, excuse me, where when I left, I was our global head of strategy. So worked on a lot of crazy projects and ideas. One area of focus was truckload brokerage, where I was one of the sponsors of the Coyote acquisition. Post Coyote, I went to Amazon, where I was I ran the middle mile truckload brokerage group, also helped build out the technology. And while at Amazon, what I was seeing in the middle mile segment was a lack of sophistication from regional truckload operators. That where you have we talk about e-commerce, but the middle mile is so critical if you're going from a distribution center to a sort center, and your truck is late. It's not one customer that's unhappy. You get 20,000 packages that are going to miss service, and then you have to spend a lot of money to speed up that movement. So I ended up leaving and locked arms with some industry vets, the ex-number 2 from UPS, ex-global head of marketing from UPS, one of the SVPs from FedEx. And we went out and raised a bunch of money, private equity money out of New York, and started rolling up regional truckload carriers. And I'm excited to announce on September 13th, we're going to be rebranding as Ascend. And all of our trucks, you'll see the logo in the background, but be pretty neat to have all of our trucks under one brand. Why is that super critical? You can't optimize a network if you don't have assets all under one TMS. So we've been actively building new tech out of India, got a programming team. We operate in total about 2,000 trucks, 8,000 trailers. We've also stood up a brokerage team out of Nashville and then Mohali in India. It's just seeing rapid growth. Our on-time service is in the high 90s. We invest in all the latest technology, all safety features for trucks, super active in the autonomous space. This is a great topic that'll become more and more prevalent. You'll just continue to see us grow through acquisition and organically, and just really excited to spend some time with everyone. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And I think we'll need to chat a little bit. So I guess maybe next, Greg, can you give your background?
Yeah, thanks, Dennis, and good morning, everyone. So I'm Greg Krongold. Came out of Georgia Tech with an industrial engineering degree, and I've worked for UPS my entire career. So I've been with the company for 15 years now. Started out, just kind of traditional, came in through industrial engineering, made some rotations through what was at the time the Georgia District, South Atlantic District, planning for package final mile operations, as well as some of our hub internal sorting. Did a good stretch in operations where I ran, managed a group of drivers, because at UPS culturally, that ground level experience is still very valuable. Came over to the corporate office in 2016, where I worked in the corporate industrial engineering function, was really kind of the head of the on-road final mile package delivery strategy operations, so setting business plan targets, operations improvements initiatives, working for the president of package operations at the time. And then in last year in September, I had the opportunity to come to our advanced technology group, which is just a really, interesting group of just very, very bright, academic individuals, as well as some really strong operations and core UPS background experience. So, in the group, our pillars are predominantly around in building automation and robotics. We do data analytics, drones, and flight forward is loosely under the advanced technology group umbrella. And then I work in our autonomous vehicle space, so primarily responsible for the final mile autonomous vehicle strategy. And we do work as well with some of the over the road opportunities as well. So pleasure to be here, and thank you, everyone.
Awesome, thank you. I guess next on my screen, Andreas, can you give your background? You're muted still.
It did not click. Sorry about that. I was clicking on it. So Andreas Bodnar, CEO of Argilux North America. I'm with this company since 2019. The company Argilux is around since 2016 in its form, and we develop, design, manufacture, and provide autonomous mobile vehicles for material handling industry, and primarily warehousing, distribution centers, and also manufacturing, or primarily manufacturing facilities. So it's all in different forms, and primarily as used as pallet movers within those facilities.
All right, awesome, thank you. And then I guess Janine, we already met you, but anything you want to add to your background?
No, no.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well then, yeah, let's get into kind of some of the more interesting things. So I think I first wanted to just start our discussion with, I mean, you know, as I mentioned when we started, we have this kind of interesting range of backgrounds and like use cases from our panel here. So I just wanted to get the first sense of like, kind of what are you kind of most excited about from this autonomous future? What are you looking forward to? What's your dream technology? And I guess maybe we can just go through the same order again, and then we'll, you know, hopefully kind of start to cross-pollinate a little bit. So maybe Michael.
Yeah, sure. I mean, to me, it's a pretty simple answer. It's one, excited about safety. I mean, that's first and foremost for our company. Right now, we spend a lot of time and money on protecting our drivers and protecting people out on the road. So, you know, moving to full autonomy, which I still think is, you know, 2030 plus, but moving in that direction will definitely save lives. We all of our trucks have the latest advanced safety features, the collision avoidance and some lane correction and cameras. You know, cameras have been such a game changer. I know we're talking about autonomy, but technology advances in general. You know, if you have a camera every day, we get a hard braking event. We send it out to the driver base and talk about the best training tool. But, you know, that gets alleviated once you, or it doesn't get fully alleviated with some edge use cases, but definitely the safety aspect.
Awesome. Right.
Yeah, I have to actually pretty much reiterate the same thing. I mean, safety is a top priority for UPS from a driver perspective. You know, every Class 8 vehicle that we've been purchasing in the last several years includes that same collision mitigation, you know, best in class collision avoidance. And, you know, we have a very solid reputation from a safety perspective as an organization. And our drivers, who many of them are in the, you know, you heard people talk about the circle of honors. Those are people who have had 30 years of driving with no crashes. You know, they have still been making comments to the positive on all of the collision avoidance technology that's in these Class 8 tractors and the opportunity it has to make an already very safe employee safer. You know, it's just the cost of an injury, not from just a financial perspective, but what it does to the employees' quality of life, and then, you know, what it does to the general public and the perception as well is just really something that is insurmountable.
Okay, I guess Andreas. Yeah.
Well, safety was already mentioned twice, and I'm completely with all of you. To our customers, of course, a big component is cost saving, and the flexibility when it comes to manufacturing to quickly change models, to quickly add on new products in their manufacturing facilities, or also when it comes to warehousing, same thing. Flexibility is king, safety, and altogether is a cost saving for the customer using these high-tech products. And that allows what we see to have more and more, I call, smaller and boutique manufacturing facilities here in this country. And we, so I'm very, you know, behind this idea to get so actually to support this idea to get more and more of these facilities or manufacturing facilities back into the country, be local here, and essentially avoid a centralized, let's put it this way, a centralized system which is vulnerable. And that all leads to, in my opinion, to this autonomous idea. And I can get more into detail later, but it's essentially we're looking at when we drive our vehicles, and the same thing will apply to on-road vehicles, is a collectively shared information. The more the better, executed individually, autonomously. So that's the key element. So that means with more and more information we have available, we can act autonomously on a local level. And that's essentially to me, the headline for autonomous mobile robots in any shape or form.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's like kind of one autonomous robot by themselves. Yeah, definitely not as good as a human, but when you get 10,000 of them driving millions of miles in the warehouse or billions on the road,
Right.
you know, it really comes together. Okay. And then
Just,
finally, Janine.
Yeah, I'll just add in there, as obviously started with safety and agree with all of that. But Andreas, thanks for bringing up the point of the data collection that occurs with those vehicles out on the road. As asset managers, if we're able to glean feedback from the vehicles, that vehicles keep hitting a pothole right there. Yep. Guess what? We know where to go. Right now, it's all very manual. So as for the maintenance and upkeep of the infrastructure, which also then translates into safety, we're looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think maybe going back to kind of Michael and Greg, I mean, you know, certainly once we get to this full level of autonomy, you know, the safety for the drivers is going to be huge. And we've already talked about how some of these kind of more level 3, level 2 safety features, you know, are already game changers. But I guess maybe what in the next 10 years do you see as a transition from where we are now to level 4 that's going to give the most bang for the buck? And I guess either one of you.
Yeah, I can start. I think that, you know, we really think of autonomy occurring first on the highways, so not on the back roads. We've got 80 drop yards throughout the south central of the US. The problem is the drop yards aren't by the highway. So if we think about, you know, how can we take advantage of some autonomy, you know, one, there's been discussions of having separate lanes on highways where you can run trucks instead of having them on the main arteries. But I think of, you know, in the next 10 years, you'll start to see an evolution of full truckload that looks a little bit like intermodal, where you've got this line haul that's like rail, but it's more of an autonomous truck, and it goes from the exit to the on-ramp. And when at each one of the connection points, we still have drivers, but those drivers are shuttling loads back and forth to these different connection points. You know, getting to level 4, level 5 is just so difficult. You got to, there's a lot of infrastructure improvements that need to happen. You'll have to get the local state and federal governments to all align. You'll have to get insurance companies to underwrite it. And so it's not as easy as a shift as people might think. It makes a heck of a lot of sense, but, you know, moving there part of the way and looking at platooning solutions and having drivers in these quasi rail movements from origin to destination, and then leveraging drop yards to create shuttle movements at the back end, which is kind of your drayage. I think that's where what we're thinking about, you know, over the next, I would say even within 5 years, we'll be moving in that direction.
Absolutely. Greg, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I'll take that one a little bit more from the final mile perspective, but a lot of the same challenges. I mean, you know, moving from one point to another point every day on a continuous, you know, we travel from the same building to the same parking lot on the same roads is much simpler of a problem to solve than trying to solve for, you know, a delivery route that delivers makes 150 stops and has to navigate to all those points, you know, is much more challenging. But if you just think about from leaving a distribution center and driving autonomously to near your first stop, where a person could start their day there, you know, that's a huge efficiency gain for the delivery space. You're really not getting a lot of productivity driving to and from a building, and being able to leverage, you know, that solution earlier would be a significant opportunity.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, that's a great point. You know, we've also we do some yard jockeying. And for those of you that don't know what yard jockeying is, you go to facilities get more and more crowded. And Janine had mentioned growth in e-commerce. And it's just crazy when you go to some of these facilities and you've got to you got to move a lot of trailers around and position them correctly and make sure that whoever's picking them up, they pick up the right one. That's a great use case for autonomy. You know, there are accidents that happen in these yards. Trailers get lost, believe it or not. But you know, using an autonomous yard jockey to move trailers around, preventing accidents, getting them ready for a drop and hook operation could be fairly logical, where you leverage sort of geofencing technology, information that Andreas had mentioned, as well as you know, the hard asset that's moving around. So that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, Outrider is kind of the company doing that, and yeah, they're definitely advancing pretty quickly. So it's pretty exciting. So I guess maybe you know, Andreas, kind of you know, hearing all of this, maybe you know, your company is going to be kind of providing the automation to these people, right? So maybe to kind of the UPS or the Send or some of these shippers. Maybe are there some things that you would like to see from them, some information, some APIs that can make your job easier, that could you know, speed up your deployment? You know, you get to ask now, right?
You know what you ask here. you know,
and I want to know too. So
nothing is perfect, so we of course have to face that fact. I just wanted to go, you know, add on before I go into what my wish list would be. When it comes to autonomous mobile robots in those facilities, in-house facilities, I think we are a very good test bed for future autonomous driving on public roads. I mean, autonomous in my textbook is, of course, at different levels. In what you just mentioned before, Janine. But autonomous for us is always driverless in that respect. So there's no one can actually take a steering wheel or something. So even this technology was invented in the 70s called AGVs. We switched to AMRs, to autonomous mobile robots or industrial mobile robots, quite recently, a couple of years ago, really, when it gets smart in the sense that it lost the wires, it lost the magnet strips on the floor, all the guidance it usually initially used to operate those vehicles, and drove autonomously. In my opinion, again, this is not totally autonomous, because most of those AMRs nowadays out there are using virtual lines. So it's I'm talking about space navigating and routing, not line navigating and routing. That actually applies to future open road applications, public road applications. So that's a very important distinction here. So having said that, we face all kinds of environments in those facilities. Some of them built in the 70s, some of them built you know, half a year ago, and with some of them have potholes and huge gaps in the floor. The processes are completely outaged and not existent. Most of the stuff is done manually. So I'm always surprised, but essentially you can get everything you can imagine here when it comes to these facilities. So we need to be very flexible and adaptable. So what the customer sees is, and that goes back to the environment and in infrastructure, well, our vehicle has to slow down when it comes to a pothole. We can actually mark the pothole, the vehicle can see the pothole, but it has to slow down. So what happens is efficiency suffers. So it is everything, and just Janine mentioned this before, it essentially is everything about average speed. Don't try to get, to have a stop because an obstacle or something is popping up. We don't even get there. So with collective information, with a fleet of 10 or 20 vehicles inside a facility, we can see the obstacle, or two other vehicles can see the obstacle on a route which is calculated from the whole union. So we completely avoid that obstacle. And this is something which can be 100% translated to a public road application. And this is where we are excited that, you know, we are in the forefront of this kind of technology using in our AGVs in manufacturing facilities and warehouses.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting point. It is kind of, I remember doing that type of stuff as well at the parking company. We're kind of looking at how far we traveled before we got to some location and understanding, you know, parking garages are also very poorly paved. That was a very interesting challenge.
But I think one more thing, Dennis, I think it is important to have people like Janine and essentially when translated to my applications, process optimization engineers and hired and consulted to understand what we can improve with this kind of technology. Because just bringing up that technology and not adapting any kind of infrastructure is not going to happen. So it actually is really counterproductive because customers expect, you know, I've seen this over and over again, kind of a miracle. When it gets the smartest product in a facility built in 75, and I don't want to change anything in my infrastructure, it's not going to happen. It doesn't help.
Yeah.
So it needs to go, you know, in both directions to adapt and improve infrastructure. At the same time, technology from the AMR part needs to improve as well. And as you know, Dennis, we are talking about vision, and especially when it comes to the open road, we need to deploy all kind of vision systems to detect more and more and different kind of objects on the road to stay on the road.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I guess, Janine, maybe you can take over.
Thank you for taking the words out of my mouth there, Andreas. It really does take both partners here, the fleet operators and the infrastructure owners and operators. I mean, we could, as government, sit back and not do anything. We don't have to. We're not mandated to do anything as, you know, public road owners. All that you saw today, and there are multiple more iterations and versions of technology that are being deployed by Georgia DOT under the vision of Commissioner Russell McMurray. He is a leader amongst state DOTs around the country for all kinds of things, including technology. And so we're glad to be that test bed here in Georgia to try to fill our infrastructure side of that equation, because it really is going to take both to get us there all the way to level 4 and 5.
Yeah, and Janine, I think when I got this right, the CVL lanes, I think that's a very good start, in my opinion. Even though to the outside, it will look like kind of ridiculous. Why would I need a separate lane for a truck then? You know, what does it? But we need to find a smooth transition. As long as we have mixed traffic, as long as we have all kinds of vehicles out on the road, and that, you know, of course, that's what I see indoors. We got bicycles, we got tuggers, we got man-driven forklifts, everything you can imagine. But the same thing is without the roof on the open road, even more critical than indoors, because in indoors, at least I have a homogeneous environment in comparison to the open road. So yeah, I congratulations to the CVL lane ambition. That's really a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just say from kind of my experience with Waymo and, you know, talking to some of the other autonomous vehicle companies out there, the real challenge is they want to do it now. And really Silicon Valley, venture-backed companies, they need to do it now. Like, so we have about 8 months of runway left or something, right? And we're not a company, so we can't wait. And so I think maybe, you know, Janine, maybe can you speak to kind of maybe some partnership opportunities available, or like really how, if I as a company need something from infrastructure, something from regulations, like how do I get connected there? And then maybe we can go to Michael and Greg and have them, you know, tell you what the types of things that they would love to see.
Well, one of the things that's been brought up here today, even if nuanced, is that different roads and different public facility environments require different types of equipment and capabilities. Open road versus tight corners in an urban area. Mm-hmm. So at the state level, we are managing all of that, all various types. So it's very difficult for us to do kind of one size fits all approaches. But there are certain things, as I mentioned before, if there's safety benefits and you can prove those, you're going to get government's attention. You really will. And in the urban environment, and this is where I would recommend, there are a couple of local governments here in Georgia, Alpharetta and Norcross, are doing some pretty exciting things at the city level. And they can move more quickly than a state government can. I think it's the city of Monroe is looking at being a smart rural city. There's a lot of innovation potentially out there to start to work on this in a city environment, and especially where you can prove safety for bicyclists and pedestrians. Where we have had more crashes, is the technical term, over the past 3-4 years has been in automobile crashes are going down, but overall crashes are going up because of the bicycle pedestrian interface. A lot of it's people distracted driving, but if there's ways that feedback loop about what's happening in the environment can get to the driver about a pedestrian or bicycle, cities will be all over that.
So, thank you. Yeah, and I guess maybe Michael, kind of taking it from the other side, like what types of infrastructure changes or regulatory challenges do you see, or opportunities, if you want to view it that way?
Yeah, well, a couple different angles. One, on the roads, we need better lines. You need consistency in on the roads, and there's just you lack a lot of that in rural areas. On the carrier front, we need federal or state support and funding. Dennis, you want to get there tomorrow. We want to get there tomorrow, but it's super expensive. If I look at the cost relative to just running a traditional truck with the driver, it's really prohibitive unless you do it in a partnership. And we've got some partnerships that we're working on. We're putting in some money. The OEM's putting in some money. We're getting some from the government, but to get adoption, you got to get some tests out there. You got to experiment, and in order to experiment, you can't expect the carriers. I'm just speaking for middle mile, full truckload, or flatbed type carriers. We just can't afford to move as fast as we should be moving. And so there's got to be a partnership between manufacturers, tech companies, government, to say, yeah, we really want to do this. It makes a heck of a lot of sense. Supply chains are so messed up right now. And we really struggle to get drivers. So, we'll continue to have jobs for people, but we also need to continue to deliver goods to consumers. And through COVID, a lot of that was, food and beverage. So, any kind of support we can get to test new solutions, help growth in the future, and not have the carrier bear all the cost. That it's that slows down the adoption.
Greg, any other things to add, like kind of any wish lists for infrastructure regulations?
Yeah, I think some of it is just being, very clear and having an understanding of what requirements are going to be in the future. As that changes from a public policy, as the technology becomes more realistic, we just need to know, I'll just make up the example, is teleops going to be a requirement for autonomous vehicles, for final mile robotics? And if it is, that's great. We need to know that that's a direction that it'll head, and then we can plan for that, long term in training and developing employees to be in a position for those roles.
Cool.
I would just jump back in on something Michael mentioned about the integrity of the rural roads. It's a problem that we're looking at from an infrastructure investment standpoint in Georgia. We know that if you're on a rural road, you're 2.5 times as likely if you're in an accident for that to be a fatal accident. There are multiple reasons for that, but that becomes the safety imperative for us that we're taking very seriously here in Georgia. We've just set up a new program to invest in rural roads that we haven't had before, that will enable us to attack both the safety issue and then also, as we do that, keep in mind the innovation that's needed for the future. Of our 125,000 or so miles of road in the state, 86,000 are locally owned roads. So there's a lot of reliance we have on the local governments and interaction and engagement with them, but we will be working to help out on those points.
Nice. I think this is,
Yeah,
this is one of the,
it's not just the lines too. If you think about autonomy, I'm sorry, Dennis. You need road sensors. So it's a combination of clear lines and road sensors.
Which means we also need the data connectivity.
Yeah.
Which is on the broadband side of things, which we're working on as well.
Connected city. It's all great stuff.
Yeah, I think it's fun that, everyone wants to talk about 5G or smart traffic lights and that sort of thing. And it's like, let's get the lines done first, and then let's get everyone talking, find the potholes, and then we can, kind of move forward. So I think maybe moving on from the infrastructure regulation type of stuff for a little bit, we did have a question in the chat. Is just like kind of maybe a quick hitter, like maybe what is the one technology problem that you're trying to solve to move autonomy forward in your group? So maybe what are you kind of personally working on to develop or implement? And I guess maybe Andreas, do you want to kick it off?
Sorry, I had to find the unmute button. I just have this small window here. Primarily, it comes down to the vision part. It is what I mentioned before, all about average speed, and even the processes can be fine. We're talking about turn radiuses, so we're going all into details. But at the end of the day, it's about the visual recognition of obstacles. What kind of obstacles to increase the average speed, essentially, to make it really efficient. We have, as just to imagine indoors, we run, and you probably know that as well, Dennis, we run a maximum speed of about 3 miles an hour, which is mandated by safety regulations. However, that's the top speed. So we're talking about average speeds in less than 1 mile or 1.5 miles an hour. So we need to kind of increase, in my opinion, the average speeds, and that has to do with safety. So the safer the vehicles can be, aka back to vision systems to recognize how far away is this person, that kind of stuff. The quicker we can improve the speed and efficiency with these vehicles. And I think that's very important for transportation on public roads as well, because it's all about average speed.
Yeah, I guess, Greg, maybe what's the challenge you're most passionate about, focused on right now?
I'll say it's as much as, I don't do as much in technology development. It's understanding the landscape of what's available now, what's going to be available, in the near future and distant future. And then how do we try to plan, new business case opportunities? How does that change, how we will operate in the future? And then understanding, being able to give feedback. I'll just go to we'll use the autonomous robots, for that last 10 feet, really understand the sensitivities of, hey, if you can move 3 miles an hour and carry 1 parcel, here's what the opportunity size is. But if you work with a vendor and say, but if you can move 7 miles an hour and carry 2 parcels, then it actually is it scales much more, and there's a much greater use case, and how that changes the business case. So that's just kind of a loop that we're constantly in.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's understanding and like building to a problem is one of the hard parts of a robotics company, I would say. It's like we all have our ideas, but until we get it in your hands, it's it's all theory. I guess, Michael?
Yeah, sure. I come at it from a little bit of a different angle. If you think of crawl, walk, run, we're in the pre-crawl phase, at least on the full truckload side. But we gather a ton of data. So I think about how do we use the data? So we run about 400 million miles a year. And in our cabs with speed limit recognition, capturing speed in different corridors, looking at where we have more hard braking events or traffic congestion. We're trying to leverage that data to use technology to optimize networks. Back to the how do we connect distribution centers to sort centers and make on-time service a lot or improve on-time service to speed up that or help with the last mile and speed up in-home deliveries. It becomes super important. It doesn't sound that important, but having that data, you know, we've been able to increase our on time into the high 90s, which is quite incredible for a full truckload carrier. But, you know, sort of stage one before we even talk about level 4, level 5 is let's leverage data to make better decisions and optimize our networks to improve that connectivity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very much what Greg was saying. It's like understanding what we should do or need to do or can do before going forward. And I think, you know, speaking from my data science side, it's like a lot of data scientists want to build machine learning models and AI. And it's like, well, just having and like looking at the data on a bar chart is a great start that a lot of people haven't done already. And yeah, you can get some of those serious insights.
Yeah, no, you guys are the best. I love data scientists and machine learning and AI, but I just have to sometimes step back and be a little bit more practical.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, should I take 85 or 75 is a question you can answer pretty quickly just with Excel. So I guess maybe, you know, Janine, maybe from DOT's perspective, what are you guys excited about deploying?
Well, the SIG ops that we have that is based on a fiber network, and that feedback to the automobiles is enabled because of that reliable, fast data on that data infrastructure that we don't have in every part of the state. And for, you know, very much like electric vehicle charging, you need to have chargers everywhere for, you know, for the electric vehicle to really be something that gets you outside of your home zone. We need that fiber everywhere for autonomy to be part of the future. So, and that is both our collection of the information, pushing it back out real time, and then it being recollected. I know there's all sorts of different technologies, you know, DSRC or, you know, cellular and whatnot, but nonetheless, we need a whole lot more fiber out there to get us where we need to be. We're also excited though in the data frame. Some of the data, maybe Michael, that you were referring to. We have the ability to, in our freight plan that we're about to get started with, take that type of data, not company specific, but aggregate it up through the data that is pushed into public sources. And look into that data where there's speeds and breakdowns. For instance, truck parking is a real problem as caused, you know, by multiple factors, not the least of which are the electronic logging devices. Well, we can look into in aggregate again those data feeds from those electric logging devices and understand where trucks have stopped, where they might not be really allowed to stop on our interstate, right? Oh, there is a truck stop for multiple hours, not at a truck stop on the side of our interstate. So we're looking at that data to understand where the demand for truck parking is and where the origin destination demand is going to be. So that data-driven approach we're taking here in Georgia, it's unique among states. Again, it's not required by the federal government, so we're kind of leading the pack on that.
And I guess in terms of that data, is that publicly available, the aggregated data, or?
If you pay for it.
Okay, awesome.
Some of it is available to state DOTs, but it's kind of a mix of both proprietary and public.
Yeah, no, I know from a company perspective, that type of data would be super valuable for us, as we were discussing what to build, right? Knowing the lengths of trips, what they're carrying, how much weight they have, how often they stop, where they stop, will be super important for all of this, any autonomous company trying to build this data. So yeah, I would definitely suggest making it available and clean. So I think another thing that was kind of mentioned during that discussion was the transition to kind of electric vehicles. And so I think that really goes hand in hand with autonomy. Those computers on those cars, they take a lot of power, and they need a battery pack in there, and really, electrification is kind of the way we're going. And so, I think maybe as we transition to an electric fleet, maybe kind of what changes do you see? Maybe what ranges, what charging rates, what's of those types of things we have to start thinking about, and do we need to really make it a viable product for what you are trying to accomplish? And so maybe Michael, you can kind of get us kicked off there.
Yeah, we're in discussions with multiple OEMs. I'd love to move to electric. The challenges are charge time and distance and weight. So if you look at our entire network, there are not that many lanes where we can actually operate an electric truck. We are going to purchase it. We're purchasing a handful of them in conjunction with believe it or not, a large fueling station network where they're going to help us get power. It's basically like putting a full power station to charge the trucks. But the technology just hasn't been able to evolve to run it over the road or run it at great distances. For people who haven't watched it, you should see the Tesla truck with announcement with Elon Musk. It's really quite amazing what he would like to do, but it's pretty far from reality. And they want us to pay full price for the truck up front, and I just don't know if it'll ever get produced. From a carbon saving footprint perspective, yeah, totally makes sense. Would love to go fully electric and love to move electric faster. I think we'll move more in CNG first to do things for the environment and test electric trucks, wait for the technology to get better, but at least have some of that under our belt.
Greg, maybe kind of how are you guys excited about it? Or what are you looking for?
Yeah, we are. So obviously, UPS has the stated goal of being carbon neutral by 2050. EV is absolutely a key player in that strategy, as well as renewable natural gas as another component. But from the EV space, I'll take the challenge from another perspective. From a delivery standpoint, range is a challenge, but it's not the biggest challenge. If you have a car that goes 100 miles, 150 miles, the majority of our delivery fleet could be serviced with an EV. The problem is when you bring all of those cars back and you have 400 vehicles at a delivery station, right? And you're going to try to charge all of them in a 10-hour, 12-hour window. The analysis on our end, just the electrical grid could not support that level of charging in most buildings. So as I look at the roadblocks to an EV fleet, the majority of the hurdles right now are getting enough power to the building to be able to charge that number of vehicles, to have a full fleet for the next day.
So, yeah, it's one of those fun problems that only UPS has. It's like we have too many electric vehicles. I guess maybe Janine, from your perspective, what's DOT doing to help us with that infrastructure?
Yeah, well, let me just say it's certainly not just DOT. In fact, the predominant solve in this really is the private sector. And this gives me a really good opportunity to let you know about something that Governor Kemp has just announced and initiated. It's being managed by the Department of Economic Development. It's called the Electric Mobility and Innovation Alliance. Mostly private sector, but also with government involved in how we can facilitate and assist related to expansion of electric vehicles, both manufacturing, uptake, and usage. There's 5 committees: workforce, supply chain, innovation, policy. The one I'm leading is infrastructure. And that committee, we're segmenting our analysis in the following. Number 1 is related to the fleet itself. What are the customer demands for the fleet, commercial or personal? The OEMs, interacting in that space. Segment 2 are charging stations. Those operators of charging stations. What sorts of opportunities and strengths do they have, and how can we help mitigate threats for them? And then utilities. So it goes to Greg's point of making sure, where there is that fleet demand, the utilities, the electric utilities, whether it's Georgia Power, Electric Cities of Georgia, or the electric membership corporations that have different, zones of customers throughout the state, can meet where that demand is with the volume and timing of the electricity that's needed for the charging. So that Electric Mobility and Innovation Alliance, there's a press release on Department of Economic Development's website, Governor Kemp's website, and we're kicking off our work here next week, actually, and I'm pretty excited to get that going.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And so I guess maybe moving on. So I think, and maybe this is a slightly self-serving question, but we have representatives from kind of the warehouse and from trucking. And I know one of the challenges in trucking is really your detention time, your dwell time. You can wait anyway from 2 to 4 hours to get loaded at a dock. And there are, a multitude of reasons for that, whether there's not enough dock doors, line of trucks, that sort of thing. And so maybe what types of technologies are you looking for to kind of alleviate that type of congestion and smooth out that transition? Because ultimately, if we have a fully autonomous warehouse and fully autonomous trucks, or mostly autonomous trucks and yard operations, and we still have someone with a forklift and someone knocking on doors and going to some office to get a truck loaded, that's kind of losing some of the benefit. So maybe what do you guys see in the industry that's coming about to help that out? And we can start with Michael and Greg, and then maybe Andreas can respond a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure about industry. I mean, one of our premises on why go big in full truckload, and why be super focused, laser focused, and on lane selection and geographic areas. It gives us density. So if you're an over-the-road driver, the way you make money is you run miles. Absolutely. And Dennis, to your point, you hate to wait. You hear it all the time. Detention's the worst thing in the world, and it's bad for us too, because it gives drivers time to make phone calls to other carriers to see who'll pay them more. So we think of it back to that sort of intermodal concept, leveraging tech. If we have a local driver that can do up and backs on an hourly basis and feed a trailer depot, then our long haul drivers, or the drivers who want to be out on the road, they just drop and hook between all of our different trailer depots. So but in order to do that, to create these handoffs or these relays, you have to use technology and you have to use data. So what are we doing to alleviate it? Yes, absolutely. You work with shippers. They will prefer live load, live unload, because it fits their schedule if they don't have dock workers available. But we just try and work around it. So maybe not where are we going? It's not an easy fix. Our job is to keep the over the road drivers out on running, getting miles, and then leverage density to create these shuttle yards where you've got hourlies that run trailers back and forth. So maybe not the answer you're looking for, Dennis, but kind of.
No, I think that's
reality. Back to reality.
Well, I think that answer is why we created our company, because that is typically the answer. But yeah, I guess Greg, maybe what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's exciting with the. We've talked a lot about the connected systems and the technology the data analytics opportunities. I'll say UPS, I feel a little spoiled because every package is really easy to tie back to a unique identifier. So from a where is it, where's it going, why is it late, all those things are relatively easy to track down. But it's that connective systems to leverage AI, whether it's connected systems in the building and then over the roads, so that we can look at real-time traffic changes. Are there delays? Are there things that we need to resolve? And then how can we even leverage that technology when there are weather events, other types of natural disasters, and we have to adjust? It's all part of that. We talk about a smart logistics network and a self-healing network. I think those are some of the keys to unlock that.
Awesome. All right. So Andreas, I'm sure you've been chomping at the bit here. What can you do to help us?
I just think that is a good question. So yeah, you're right on it. So I don't think I have to explain more. It's the holy grail, in my opinion, for material handling, because this is one of the kind of the black spots we haven't resolved yet, or don't have a clear roadmap. So yeah, if someone manages to flawlessly loads and unloads a truck, I think you'll get a lot of investors, Dennis. You'll get very rich. There's no doubt about that. So yeah, I think that closes the whole material handling chain. And when it comes to trucking, I just wanted to add on some things what we use in-house, and maybe I'm not too familiar with the public road here, but we do when it comes to battery charging, we use opportunity charging. So that means whenever we pick up or drop a load, we can actually position charges a way that it charges within, everything within 20 seconds idle or longer, our batteries recharge. And the maximum recharge time is 20 minutes for a full charge, because the batteries we use have kind of a super capacitor characteristic. So maybe that makes sense, especially for company fleets, to use those wireless chargers. I'm just making a guess here. During loading and unloading, when a truck comes, stops by the loading dock, and while it's then hanging around for a couple of minutes or an hour, it can actually recharge, or at least quite some bit. Nowadays, the battery standards are getting better and better. It's not super duper, all over, but when it comes to safety, lithium ferrophosphate is of course favorite, and the current gold standard. It also doesn't blow off the lid if you charge too hard on those things. So they can take quite some charge within a specific time. So this technology is catching up on that one. Is it fast enough? I'm not. Battery is still the bottleneck, in my opinion. There's no doubt. But yeah, back to the loading, non-loading. I'm all with you.
Yeah, and I think that's a good learning, this opportunistic charging. And I think with a more networked economy, right, we can give people a price break if they charge our trucks while they're live loading and unloading. I think there's a lot of this sharing type economy that people are getting used to, that if someone can figure out how to manage it all, it would be great. So I think that's about it for our the questions that I had. And it's 9 o'clock, so I think we'll go through some of the questions that we had in the chat, and then if there's any other questions, I think we're scheduled to hang out for a while more. But I think the first question, and I'm not sure, I guess maybe the one thing missing from this panel is a lawyer, but there's the question about has Neuro or others kind of worked out insurance to provide insurance options for these autonomous vehicles, and I know that there are at least a couple of companies trying to do that. I just saw one called, I think, Co-op or Coop, just raised around last week, that's trying to insure autonomous vehicles. And I know we had a huge legal team at Waymo dealing with this type of stuff. I'm not sure if anyone has any experience. Probably not. Nope. Okay. Well, it is an interesting question, and maybe next time we can get a lawyer on board to help us out with that one. So
Sorry,
next
I would
one-
also
Yeah.
include an insurance
Yes.
company as well, because what's funny, just I don't think it's really funny, but when we talk about insuring a forklift and forklift driver versus a AMR, the AMR is, we get quotes actually more expensive than a
Yep.
forklift driver, because there is no history of incidents, even though it's proven that it is actually safer, 100 times, 1,000 times safer, but still, the insurance is still high until, I don't know how many years they want to keep this up, but that's something I'm, of course, looking into in the future, what we can do, and also for our customers to use this as an argument that, look, replacing 10 manual driven forklifts with this is saving you that amount, X amount of insurance costs.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think that's a great point, Andreas. I'd mentioned it earlier, what limits autonomous adoption, it's infrastructure, it's governments setting standards, local, state, federal, and it's the insurance underwriting.
Right.
If that's it's going to take a long time to get people comfortable, especially with nuclear verdicts in the middle mile segment. That
Mhm.
the first time one of those accidents happens, I can guarantee you there'll be lawyers coming after
Right.
someone. And then Tom Valentine, he sent a comment on in-cab. What about ransomware, cyber attacks on an autonomous truck? It's becomes a 60 mile per hour moving bullet if someone gets a hold of it. So you gotta. That's why UC Berkeley did a study on slow versus fast adoption, and in their slow case, I think they were at 2030, and we'll still be or 2045, and we'll still be far behind where we want to be. I'm hoping it's faster, but just so many issues out there that have to be grappled with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the cybersecurity is a challenge, and I think it's something that unfortunately, right, there's the clash between speed and safety and whatever, whether it's actually the safety of the autonomous system or not setting your default password on your cloud account. A lot of those things take time, and some people kind of skip steps, and so yeah, making it easier is definitely important. And as well as, to go along with the insurance statement, like it is also frustrating that like a lot of the safety standards in general for autonomous are more rigorous than what you would have for a forklift driver or a truck driver. I mean, ultimately, any amount of safety is probably going to, or safety systems are going to help, and it's hard to get them deployed because of these things. And so, okay. So Michael said, so I guess, are there any other questions from the audience? Anyone want to come off mute and, talk to us in person, or, if not, maybe, I guess, okay. And then I guess maybe any kind of final comments around the panel. Just kind of summarizing what we discussed, anything we missed.
I would say essentially, it's always, and I don't know, Dennis, if you can have the same experience. It's almost like being in this kind of business. And that business is really kind of a roller coaster thing. It's on one hand, what we see is possible from a technology perspective, but on the other hand, here's the real life. This is what we have to deal. This is the infrastructure we deal with. And I see myself kind of a mediator between both worlds here. So just to make things happen, we need to scale down technology a little bit to make it adaptable or adapted to the current environment. So of course, ideal would be a more and more coherent infrastructure available out there, but this is going hand in hand. When technology moves up, in my opinion, that will come as well. But essentially, it's always exciting to be in that kind of business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just great discussion. Really enjoyed the conversations. And just to announce for the group here that Atlanta is going to be the home, the corporate center for my company. So I'm excited about that too.
That's exciting. Thank you for that announcement. Woohoo! Welcome to Georgia.
Absolutely. All right. Greg, any final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. No, this has been a great opportunity. It's always great to hear all the different perspectives from the tech side and what's being developed, the GDOT, legislative side and what they see, as well as hearing, from Michael. It's great to know that we share a lot of the same challenges. So it's makes me think that I'm not crazy when I look at some of those. So that's always great. And I think more open discussion is how we move these big goals forward.
Absolutely. All right. And then I guess, Janine, any other final comments?
Thanks for, again, to the Logistics Association for reaching out and inviting me to participate. I always learned so much engaging with you all who are on the real front lines of innovation, and looking forward to more opportunities to engage with you all. I'd just say there are governments at every level, local, state, and federal, and do continue to find opportunities to bring your thoughts, ideas, concerns to your elected officials. We're here to serve you. So keep that occurring. We're always open for business at the state level. Your local governments and federal representatives are interested in helping too.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I really appreciate everyone's thoughts, and hopefully we can kind of use this forum and this group of people to maybe short circuit some of these problems and get going, and make Atlanta the leader in logistics that it is, and should keep on being. So I guess thanks everyone, and I guess other Dennis, you want to jump back in?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Dennis, and thank you the rest of the panel. It was really a gold mine of information today. We are obviously, this is going to be an evergreen type of thing. So with the recording, so we'll definitely have to make sure that we get this out to a wider audience than we had today. But it was really very interesting. Learned a lot, and I want to thank you all again for your patience and for being flexible with us as we had to change from in-person to online and changing dates and so forth. So for both the audience and for the panelists, thank you again, and wish you the very best in everything. Michael, good luck with this new venture and making Atlanta the headquarters for Ascend. Andreas, it's been great meeting you, and wish you the best of luck with Agalox. It looks like you're very far down the road in getting your autonomous mobility implemented. Dennis, good luck with Slip Robotics. It sounds like a fascinating venture. Look forward to hearing more about that. And Greg, good stuff going on at UPS, and thanks for your insight. And Janine, it's been great. It's your insight was fantastic. Understanding what's going on, not only at the local state level, but just the broad view of where we stand in terms of autonomous and the impact it's going to have on our society, really. So thank you also. So with that, we're going to close out the session. Thanks, TAG. Thanks to the GLA, Jamie Forrest, your leadership at the GLA. Thank you for helping out with this, and have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
Dennis. And thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone.